85% of the government jobs in Ladakh would now be reserved for the locals. This is in relation to the new regulation which the government of India has come up for the people of Ladakh in preservation of their language, their culture, their jobs and different other things which people of Ladakh were wanting and the civil society of the Ladakh was demanding. Government of India has come up with a new regulation for Ladakh in 2025. Now this new legal framework introduced in Ladakh is for the first time where civil services requirement will be there in Ladakh for the locals. Also alongside that, the local jobs in Ladakh would be reserved for the local people and 85% reservation would be there. Also, indigenous languages in Ladakh would be made official working languages and they are officially recognized. And alongside that, the principle of domicile-based job reservation system has been introduced in Ladakh following this new regulation of 2025. So in total, there are 5 such regulations. And without beating around the bush, we'll see all these 5 regulations one by one. And after that, we will do the analysis. Hello, my name is Preetpal Singh and you're watching Perspective. Now, out of those 5 recent regulations which has been put by the central government for Ladakh, first one is Ladakh Civil Services Decentralization and Recruitment Amendment Regulation of 2025. Now, this particular regulation introduces domicile requirements for government posts under the Union Territory of Ladakh. It is done for the first time. And the domicile would be given to a person for different categories. First, it would be given to a person who has resided in Ladakh for more than 15 years. Second, it could be given to a person who has studied in Ladakh for more than 7 years or would have given their 10th or 12th board exams in Ladakh itself. Also, it would be provided to the central government employees, the children of the central government employees who have been working in Ladakh for 10 long years. And also, those who have got a domicile, their children and spouse would also be eligible to get a domicile for the Union Territory of Ladakh. That is the first regulation. Now, the second regulation is Ladakh Civil Services Domicile Certificate Rules 2025. Now, in this particular regulation, it lays out the procedure and the documentation which is required by the individual to obtain the domicile certificate which is necessary. Now, the Tehsildar, the local Tehsildar of Union Territory is made responsible for issuing those domicile certificates. And the Deputy Commissioner is made an appellate authority. Also, applications can be submitted both electronically and both physically for getting this domicile certificate. This is the second regulation. And the third regulation, which is the most important regulation, is the UT of Ladakh Reservation Amendment Regulation of 2025. Now, this particular regulation, it caps the total reservation of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, other backward classes and other socially and educationally marginalized classes in Ladakh to the extent of 85%. And this is excluding the 10% economically weaker section quota and economically weaker section criteria. So if we see holistically, there is going to be 95% reservation in Ladakh. 85% for SC, ST, OBC and other socially and educationally marginalized sections, excluding the 10% EWS criteria. So 85% reservation in Ladakh for local jobs. Also, important thing to note here is that this regulation or this reservation has been also extended to professional educational institutions, whether it be engineering colleges or medical colleges in Ladakh as well. Now, earlier, if you remember, the quota for SC, ST, OBC, it was maximum capped to be at 50%. But all of you know that Ladakh is majorly a tribal region. So tribal population in Ladakh is quite huge, which is why this SC, ST and OBC reservation has been increased. The limit has been increased to 85%. And it excludes the 10% of economically weaker section. And that is the third important regulation. Now, the fourth regulation is Ladakh's official language regulation of 2025. Now, the law now would recognize English, Hindi, Urdu, Bhoti and Purgi as the official languages in Union Territory of Ladakh. It also has mandated institutional support for other regional languages as well, whether it be Shina, whether it be Broksat, whether it be Balti or whether it be Ladakhi. And it is there to promote Ladakh's linguistic diversity and cultural diversity as well. So, linguistic and cultural diversity of Ladakh would be promoted by inclusion of all these languages. First, some 2 languages, regional languages, included as a part of official language, and institutional support being given to the other languages as well. This is definitely going to pave a good way for the official languages and for the Ladakh's regional culture to be preserved, which is very integral and very important. Now, these are the 4 initial regulations. The 5th regulation is regarding Ladakh's Autonomous Hill Development Council. So an amendment to this, so Ladakh's Autonomous Hill Development Council Regulation 2025. Now this has amended the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council Act of 1997. And it is now going to reserve the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council. Now, 1/3 of the seat in that autonomous council would be reserved for women. So, women reservation in the Autonomous Development Council of Ladakh is now going to be there. So, in Leh and Kargil, both of the places it would be applied in the Autonomous Hill Development Council. Both of the places in Leh as well and in the Kargil region as well, it would be applied on a rotational basis. So these are the 5 integral regulations which the Government of India has come up with on June 2nd and June 3rd of the year 2025. This is going to be a landmark shift for Ladakh as the union territory of the country. And which is why here is what we need to understand about its importance. See, the significance of this particular regulation or these 5 regulations being initiated for Ladakh region is very important. Since 29 itself, when abrogation of Article 370 was done, and when Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act was formed, there was one very important change which was made. Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh were separated. Before that, Ladakh was a part of Jammu and Kashmir itself, the state of Jammu and Kashmir. But after 2019, Ladakh became separate, Jammu and Kashmir became separate, and both of them were converted into union territory. So UT of Ladakh separate, UT of Jammu and Kashmir separate. Now Jammu and Kashmir was made a union territory with a legislative assembly, which means Jammu and Kashmir would have its own elected government as well, and there would be a lieutenant governor in the union territory also. That was the political status of Jammu and Kashmir. However, Ladakh as a union territory only got a lieutenant governor, that's all. So which means Ladakh was made a union territory without a legislative assembly, without the elected government, which made many people, many sections of Ladakh, rather than being happy because of the abrogation of Article 370, many of the people, they started questioning the government. And many of the people, rather than being happy, they were in a way more concerned that because now we have become union territory, first of all, we won't have an elected legislative assembly. Second of all, we won't have the power to elect our representatives. There won't be any MLAs. And because there won't be any MLAs, there won't be accountability, which is why that was one concern. Another concern was that a lot of safeguard provisions were provided to Jammu and Kashmir, whether it be in relation to land that no outsider can come, whether it be in relation to domicile, which was immediately provided, and different other safeguards provided to the Jammu and Kashmir. One biggest thing was legislative assembly. Ladakh, on the other hand, was not provided with these things. And people of Ladakh were very furious, which is why these regulations which are announced by the Government of India right now, they're a significant milestone and significant step for the people of Ladakh. After 6 years, now they would feel that now they have got to some extent what they wanted from the Government of India. The safeguards which they wanted for the preservation of their language, preservation of their culture, for their jobs, for their land, some of the safeguards have been given to them by the government. This is at least what they can be assured of by now. But I want to highlight a very integral point in front of you. If you notice it very clearly, these are regulations which the central government has notified for Ladakh, which means all of these decisions, they are executive decisions. They are not constitutional decisions. So whenever executive would want, they can take back these decisions. So these decisions are executive in nature and not constitutional. This is what you need to focus on and remember. Now, before we go into the analysis part of it, what we need to understand is, again, we understood why it is significant for the people of Ladakh. And I told you, since 2019, Ladakhi people, they wanted a lot of safeguards and their demands were multiple. But we need to understand in actuality what their demands were in order to analyze that are these regulations being able to meet those demands or not. So for that, we need to understand what Ladakh people actually want and what their demands are. See, the biggest demand in the last 5 years, especially in the last 2 years, which we have seen from the people of Ladakh, is inclusion of Ladakh in the 6th schedule of Indian Constitution. Now, what is 6th schedule, we'll see. But one fact I want to highlight, that please remember 90%, more than 90% of Ladakh's population is a part of scheduled tribes. Now, in the last 2 years especially, the demand for inclusion in the 6th schedule has been very prominent. Now, what is the 6th schedule? See, if we see the Article 244 of Indian Constitution, it provides for administration of tribal areas of Tripura, Assam, Meghalaya and Mizoram. In these 4 regions, the management of tribal areas is a part of Article 244. And it resulted from Bardoloi Committee's recommendations. And 6th schedule is a part of this Article 244. Now, 6th schedule of our Indian Constitution, it empowers the governor of the state to create autonomous district councils ADCs and autonomous regional councils ARCs in these 4 states. Now, these autonomous district councils, autonomous regional councils will help tribal people in those regions to make laws on subjects like forest management, subjects like agriculture, inheritance, marriage, social customs, and different other things. Law can be made autonomously by those autonomous regional councils and autonomous development councils ADC in those 4 states. It is under Article 244, 6th schedule of our Indian Constitution. Also, additional to that, these developmental councils, they have the power to collect land tax, land revenue, impose tax, regulate the trading, and collect royalties for mineral extraction in their region as well. Which means, in a way, if we see, Schedule 6 gives a very strong, stringent constitutional safeguard to these 4 states and the tribals living in these 4 states. And the entire hunger strike and the protests which were leadered or which were headed by Sonam Wangchuk and different civil societies of Ladakh, unequivocally, they were wanting 6th schedule status. Now, in the recent regulation, 6th schedule status has not been given to Ladakh, but other than that, a lot of different other regulations have been given to people of Ladakh which would make them happy. But still, 6th schedule has not been given. This is what we need to understand. So the 2 civil societies in Ladakh, the Leh Apex Body and the Kargil Democratic Alliance, both of them, they have been jointly, were represented by the Buddhist and the Muslims of the region. Jointly, they have been asking the government to give the 6th schedule status. And as I told you, 2024-2025 marked the 2 years where hunger strikes were there, protests were there. Many people sat on hunger strike for numerous days in order to ask for 6th schedule status from the government. But is the 6th schedule given in the recent regulations? The answer is no. But then the question is, okay, 6th schedule, whatever they demanded, the government could not meet those expectations, but there were certain other things inherently what they wanted through 6th schedule. They wanted that their jobs to be preserved for the local people only. They wanted their land to be preserved. They wanted their culture to be preserved. They wanted their language and identity to be preserved as well. So through these regulations, to some extent, the government has tried to preserve all those things. Maybe not in the way which Ladakhi people wanted by inclusion in the 6th schedule, but in the way of executive order in a different route. They have been trying to promote the people of Ladakh. This is where we will see the loopholes and we will analyze that how these regulations will help the people of Ladakh and what are the loopholes in them. See, without mincing words, if we compare objectively, whatever Ladakh, the facilities Ladakh was enjoying before, and the facilities Ladakh would be enjoying after these regulations are in place, definitely now Ladakhi people would be better off. So it is a moment of joy, it is a moment of pride, and it is a good moment for the people of Ladakh. Because these regulations are definitely going to preserve their identity, preserve their culture, and help the people of Ladakh. But still, there are certain loopholes. So while we are making it very clear that it is going to be beneficial for the people of Ladakh, still there is scope of improvement. The first scope of improvement which we can see, and first loophole which we can argue about, is the lack of constitutional provision. Because if Ladakh would have been included in the part of 6th schedule, Article 244, then the government would be constitutionally bound to provide safeguards to Ladakh. But as I've told you, these are executive orders, 5 executive orders, not constitutional amendments. And not constitutional provisions also. And all these new regulations and rules have been made under the Article 240 of our Constitution, which allows the President of India to make regulations for Union territory without the legislature. So under Article 240, these regulations have been promulgated. Now there is no constitutional basis to it, which means that they can't be enforced in a court of law. That is one thing, that is one loophole. And the second most critical omission, which many people are highlighting, many experts are highlighting, that there is no talk or no discussion about land of Ladakh being reserved just for locals for the domiciles. Which means still people from other parts of the country can buy a piece of land in Ladakh. So which means that there is absence of any restriction on the land ownership by the non-domiciles in the Union Territory of Ladakh. That is one very big drawback, one big criticism which some experts from Ladakh are highlighting. And this is a very key issue in Ladakh, because alongside all these things, Ladakhi people are also very concerned with the environmental degradation happening in Ladakh due to the reckless tourism. So growing concerns over large-scale tourism, infrastructure projects, and climate vulnerability of that particular region. Because see, Ladakh is a very fragile ecology. And the impact of climate change would be much worse on the people of Ladakh, right? In that space, the land reservation, the reservation for locals in buying land in Ladakh is not enshrined. There is no talk about land in all these regulations. That is second very big loophole. Now the third big loophole is that it does not address the decision making, local level decision making power of the civil societies or the developmental councils of Ladakh. So it has amended the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council for Kargil and Leh by including one-third members to be women. But still you need to understand this developmental council in Ladakh is an administrative body. It is not a legislative body. It is having no powers to legislate. It is just an administrative body for administration purposes. While on the other hand, if in 6th schedule, if it is included, Autonomous District Council, they have legislative power. Even they have taxation related, revenue related powers as well. So Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council is not having such authorities, or it is not having such mandate, which is again one very strong point of criticism, because in this part, something people of Ladakh were wanting. That government does give some power to the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council for creation of certain laws which can help Ladakhi people to gain accountability and get some power and to gain autonomy as well. Also, some experts, they are arguing that even though two of the languages have been included in the official languages and some of the other regional languages have been promised to give institutional support to, still many people are saying that local languages, though they have been recognized, but a clear roadmap for the official use of those languages in education and governance and polity and judiciary, that all remains very ambiguous. So how the official two languages which have been included, regional languages which have been included as official languages, how they'll be integrated in judiciary, in education, in governance of the union territory, it is still a very, very big question. So these are certain concerns which you should know about when we talk about the new regulations which have been launched, which have been promulgated by the President of India for the people of Ladakh. See, now since we have a clear understanding of the entire issue, we have done the analysis as well. Conclusively, if we see Ladakh very objectively, we'll be able to realize one thing, that the people of Ladakh mostly are a part of tribal communities, and they are concerned about preservation of their own identity, their own culture. And while wanting that, they are wanting certain constitutional safeguards. While we haven't given them constitutional safeguards, we have given them certain regulatory framework under which people of that union territory would get certain safeguards for sure. But are these safeguards sufficient? The answer is no. Are more safeguards to be provided? The answer is yes. But the question is more autonomy to be provided to the people of Ladakh? The answer is again yes. See, there is no reason why we shouldn't extend democratic principles, democratic values, and democratic institutions to Ladakh also. Why shouldn't Ladakh have a legislative assembly? That is one question. The Lieutenant Governor of Ladakh is taking all the decisions. Is he made accountable by the people of Ladakh in any way or manner? The answer is no. Also, the Ladakh Autonomous Hill Development Council, the only autonomous development council in Ladakh, remains still an administrative body and not a legislative body. So can we give certain legislative powers to the Autonomous Hill Development Council? The answer is yes. Should we? The answer is again yes. So this is high time we recognize the demands of the people of Ladakh who have been protesting since last many years, and many people have been protesting since last many decades. This is the time when this fragile ecological land, where climate change vulnerability is very high, which is very heavily impacted by global warming, very heavily impacted by the pollution because of the infrastructural projects in this particular region and the resource extraction by the billionaires in this particular region. Many people are stressed due to this, and the living condition and the standard of living of the people have also got impacted due to reckless tourism coming into the union territory, and again, different other problems, environmental, social, cultural, created out of it. So what we need to understand here is that Ladakh is a special area in our country, needs to be treated specially. People of Ladakh, since long under the Jammu and Kashmir government, when Jammu and Kashmir was one state, people of Ladakh have suffered a lot. And to ameliorate that suffer, to make sure to remedify that suffer, government needs to strengthen these safeguards, safety nets provided to the people of Ladakh, and it needs to be strengthened, promoted more, and constitutional safeguards alongside these regulatory safeguards needs to be given to the people of Ladakh. And people of Ladakh needs to be assured that don't worry, we stand firm with you. I hope you gained a new perspective from this session. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Thank you.